And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday night. How's everybody doing?
Doing
Fantastic.
well.
Howdy. Excellent.
Well,
Doing really well.
just so you're aware, we are getting snow and maybe ice outside. So if the whole stream just goes down, you know what happened. Okay, my power went out and you guys are going to have to live without me. All right.
That's no good.
All right. So last week we had a Linux Mint distro challenge. This week we had a Unix OS challenge. And Unix is Ubuntu based off of 1804, modified by Tony George using Unity 7. So I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people that love it, quite a few people that hate it. So let's just get started with it. We might as well just get started. So I did contact Tony George, though, and I will read you his email of what he said about what he hopes to change in the future. So, Deb, why don't we start with you? I know you're a big Unity lover, and
Well, funny enough, I had actually tried it about a week before the challenge because the Dark One said to me, "Why don't you give this a whirl?" My first ISO must have had something wrong with it because as soon as I started it up and did an update, errors started throwing left, right, and center. And I did my usual, give it an hour. No, this is no good. Next. And then I heard it was probably going to be on the challenge, so I thought I better give it another go. And whilst it installs and it's usable and it works, Unity's just not for me. So it didn't last much more than a day. But it's perfectly serviceable. I'm sure that you can get used to it. I'm sure you could tweak it and change it the way you wanted it to be. It just, I think I might start to fully understand now what you guys mean by workflow. Everything just felt alien for me, and it just didn't feel right. So no, it's gone, and I'm on something else, which I'll explain later on in the show.
all right. So, Peter, you are up, sir.
Thank you. So as I tried to do, I'm actually broadcasting from Unix, so it's working fine in that regard. Zeb is right. The workflow is a little different. I actually like it once you get used to it. It really starts from that left-hand corner. And first of all, I was confused why there was a search button where I thought a menu button would be. But that search button is extremely handy. And I only use the menu button over in the right-hand side panel when I need to. So in that regard, it works. By the way, I installed 1810 after paying the $11. And I thought, I'll give that one a try. I'd installed it twice. The first time was a failure. After the install, Chrome wouldn't open. I actually updated, rebooted, and when I rebooted, I couldn't get past the logon, which was a Ubuntu fault apparently, but I couldn't get past it, so I reinstalled. But since I reinstalled, it's been fine. Other than that, it works.
So, you did have issues, but a reinstall fixed it. You had similar issues, Zeb, with the reinstall. You're muted, Zeb.
Yeah, no, the first time round, I don't know what went wrong, but I mean, every now and again, maybe one every 50 installs, things just don't work.
Yeah.
And it's not just Unix; it could be any distro. You'll do a download. You'll do everything you do like you would normally do. You do an install, and it's like, yeah. And there's
there was one small thing on the current install. Last time I booted the system up, the panel on the left, the icons are there, but there was no actual pictures. It was just blanks.
Oh.
And I couldn't get the panels to come up. So I actually logged out and logged back in, and then it reappeared. But apart from that, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Nate, give us some positive vibes on Unix.
Well, it has a lot of great things going for it. I think initially the theme itself, I think the theme looks great. I think I mean, it really does look fantastic. The coloring is nice. The what I like is the little shadowing effect when you hover over a button. How it just kind of like there's like this really subtle shadow that shows up. And when you click on a little check mark, how there's this little spin effect when you check it, it looks really good. The wobbly windows look really good. Because actually, I kind of forgot about wobbly windows, and it was kind of a pleasant surprise to see it again. And overall, the interaction is very modern feeling. It's very pleasant. I like the fact that I was able to select the option to install Umix right from the welcome screen, and because I think trying it is very trying before an install. It has the typical Ubiquity installer. I think it's the Ubuntu Ubiquity installer. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I'm getting the north and south here, so that must be correct. And like most Ubuntu-based distributions, I mean, it's a great. I think it's still a great installer. It's held up well over the years. I have no complaints over that installer whatsoever. And also, the monitor handling is quite satisfactory. I mean, I don't think it's as good as KDE Plasma, but it's definitely on par. It needs a few refinements, I think, to get like the Plasma level of usability. But I think overall, I think it's really great. So I have a few what I don't like. What I don't like, sees. Now I don't like being negative. That's not how I roll. I don't like being negative. It's just, but I have a list. There are a few irritating features. I'll just kind of hit the big ones. So I don't know if it was. I tried to do a SSH login into another machine from my distro hopping machine, and I was not able to actually. The host names were not resolving on that machine. So I checked the resolve.conf, and it was looking for 127.0.0.53, and I don't know if that's an internal loopback. I wasn't sure what's going on there, but I couldn't actually type in a host name from another machine to access it through the terminal. So that was kind of irritating. The default file manager in Unity is, in my estimation, just not acceptable. I would actually describe it as frustratingly limited.
Files.
Just adding the one feature I would add to it that would make it just acceptable is the ability to type in a file path. I was not able to do that. You had like a breadcrumb thing to click through. Not a fan of that. I think compared to like Dolphin or even Conquer on KDE Plasma.
What were you going to say, Anna?
You can type paths in. It's just that the field is not revealed until you press Control L. It's the same as Nautilus. You press Control L, the field appears. You just type a path in.
Okay.
Well, there we go. See, I guess I'm a little bit of a numpty, eh? So, anyway, now that I know that changes my opinion. So, well, thanks for that, Alan. The firewall is turned off by default, which I guess I think it's unwise, but if you're inside your network, I guess it doesn't really matter because I have a pretty good firewall system. But if anything, if you're going outside your home network, I would be concerned about that. The top panel, I think it's called the global menu. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like an unnecessary use of screen real estate. I found like it because it took up space on top of both screens, and so I didn't like that at all. I think if I had just like one screen or the other, that would have been fine. Because you have a side panel, then a top panel. I'd have preferred just everything on one or the side. That's just me. That's a preference thing. Also, if I had multiple windows open, I'd have to go to that top panel to get to any options, and I didn't really like that either. I mean, if it works for you, great. It didn't work for me.
Well, the panel up top is separate. You have the panel, then you have the launcher, and then the global menu is the actual menu system that you're looking for in each program.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, but I mean, it looks nice though. I mean, I can't complain about the looks at all. It looks nice. It just didn't work for me. I couldn't find a way to turn off the secondary one on the other monitor. That'd have been nice if I could have done that. But
I will agree with that. That's one of my things that I have down for a con that you have to have that second panel on a second monitor.
Right, but outside of that, honestly, I think it's really awesome that that there's an effort to preserve Unity. It's it's not for me, but I'm glad that somebody's preserving it, and I hope they continue to do that because I think it's a fine experience, for those that it fits, and yeah. So would I use it? No, but I think it's great.
Well, Nate, did you use Unity at all before? I mean, had you ever tried Unity before, or?
I did, and I didn't care for it before, and I was trying to be very open. I mean, I have a bias, obviously. I was
Right.
trying to be objectively biased and say, like, could I like it? Could I get used to it? And I don't think I could. I mean, if it was like that or Windows 10, I'd take it in a heartbeat. But I would,
Absolutely.
because it's a better experience in Windows 10. It's faster, it's cleaner.
Mhm.
Also, it uses more memory than KDE Plasma. On a vanilla install post updates, it used 712 megabytes of RAM as opposed to the 380 that KDE Plasma on OpenSUSE Tumbleweed.
Well, I think you're
So-
kind of spoiled on Tumbleweed because Plasma takes up more than that on an Ubuntu install.
Oh, okay,
So-
yeah.
All right. So you were okay with it.
Yeah, I think it was okay. I mean, I think that it's a good looking, it's a good looking desktop. I mean, that's without a doubt.
I
And
think
it was smooth. It was very buttery smooth. Everything, even on older hardware, it still worked very well. It just,
I
wasn't.
think what we have to do is we have to differentiate what we are going to give pros and cons to for Unix itself, and then separate from Unity. So a lot of the problems or issues people have may be Unity itself, and has nothing to do with Unix because it's based off of Unity, so it's going to be that way. It's kind of like files. I mean, there's nothing you're going to do about that. That's the file manager, and
You
Yeah,
can
but that's
change it.
that's the whole point of Unix, isn't it? He's created this Unity and revisited, so to speak. So you can't speak about Unix without speaking of Unity. Otherwise, it's just an Ubuntu base with a different desktop, exactly the same as Ubuntu would be. It's just a Ubuntu base with an XFCE desktop. I don't think you can differentiate between the two.
well, I
you-
think
you
they're
kind
tied
of-
together. Go ahead.
You can to some degree because they've modified Unity slightly, so it's not stock Unity. So you could say,
Right.
it's like the difference between Kubuntu and KDE Neon, or it's not as harsh as the difference between OpenSUSE Tumbleweed with KDE and Ubuntu with KDE, because there's a lot of differences in the platform. It's very close. I agree, and the main USP of this is it's Unity. So it's tricky to separate the two. It is, but yeah.
All right, Thomas, you are up, sir.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. I used to be a Unity lover. And since I've moved on from that, I use other things now. And I was going into this expecting to, get that nostalgic feel and feel like I loved it. And I was sorely disappointed. So I will say that whatever they did, Unity feels much faster than what I remember. I remember I would click on that global menu button and I would wait like 5 to 10 seconds for the global menu to pop up. And with Unix, I would click it and it would pop up almost instantly. Personally, I also like the semi-dark theme. The icon theme was okay. But also I will say, since it came with Unity theme tweaks, that was a great choice. It's like a GNOME distro coming without GNOME tweaks. You don't do it. You always ship, if it has Unity, you put in Unity tweaks. Please. So there's that. But I was playing around in it and I noticed a lot of my settings were not being honored. So I was trying to change the way the panel looked, and whatever I changed it to did not honor it. It would honor what apps I had locked to that panel, but if I tried to change the coloration, not going to happen. It was not going to change my wallpaper for the login screen because it shows the default wallpaper for that. It doesn't show the user's wallpaper. And when I tried to flip that setting, it wouldn't do it. And then their little conky thing, I tried to disable it using decomp. And it basically threw that out the window and said, nope, we're going to run this anyway. So
Well,
that annoys me.
as far as the login's concerned, I had to actually add the background I wanted to somewhere in the root file system. in
Okay.
order for it to change. So I added the background. I wanted to like user share backgrounds and then
Right.
set it to be that background, and it changed instantly.
I just chose one of the default backgrounds that I liked, and it didn't do it. So I don't know what's going on in there, but it ain't doing it.
Worth finding.
Also, having ZSH as your default shell is a little bit weird. It's really commonly Bash, not ZSH, so that was weird. But I will say that it is really easy to fix. If you go into the preferences, you can set the the command to run instead of your default shell as whatever, so that works. The window menus being at the top of the screen and not with the window itself in its title bar or whatever, that's really weird. I'm not used to that, but I do remember that happening in Unity. So, yeah. And then that maximize window animation is trash. Let me tell you, having it go from like this little bitty window over here to like boom and wobbling all over the place. I'm sorry. No. Just pop up and let me get to work. Okay. Having that whole little thing going is distracting. Just boom. And that may have been default on normal Unity, but
Thomas, you're the reason why we can't have nice things, okay?
It
oh,
wasn't-
really now? Really now? Okay, then. Overall, I will say, though, like, I did like it. It was a little bit nostalgic, but not having all those settings being honored is a pain in the butt. So
I think there's something wrong with your computer.
it was
Never had that as an
running.
issue.
It was running in a VM, so it's probably a VM issue or something like that.
Yeah, it might have been a VM issue.
It might be.
I installed it in VM and on hardware both, and I didn't have any settings issues not sticking.
Okay.
Neither did I.
Because I also remember running Ubuntu with Unity back in the day in a VM, and I never had those issues. So it must be something to do with some of those changes, either interacting with my specific VM setup or just my specific download, I guess.
Could it be a PEBCAC error?
I don't know. Maybe.
Problem exists between the keyboard and the chair.
Oh.
I call
Anyway.
it picnic here.
Possible but unlikely.
All right,
Possible but
Dan.
unlikely.
Dan, give us some positive news about Umix, will you?
I liked it. It was good. It was a trip down memory lane for me as well. I remember running Unity on Ubuntu, back in the day, but it has been a while for me. So it was a good refresher, and I enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to be switching, but I could get used to it pretty quick. I could get right back into it. And one of the things that I really miss, and other people have tried to sort of replicate, is the HUD.
Yep.
And I really, really miss that. I mean, so you've got KRunner in KDE, or other distros have the same sort of thing, and you could probably put on Rofi or something like that, but it's not the HUD, and that I miss. That's the biggest thing. So that's my positive vibe.
There you go.
I probably won't be switching, like I said, but I may keep it around on a machine just because it's kind of fun to go back and play with. One of the things that I find disappointing is there's not other distros that offer up Unity. It has I'll say a following, and I find it hard to believe that there's not other distros doing the same thing. So it's a little bit disappointing. It'd be nice to see it gain some ground, and maybe somebody will keep it going.
It's definitely still a great desktop environment. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't know why there's not more.
Exactly. There's other DEs that are probably not as good. So why not, right? I mean, that's my question.
Yep. Totally agree. Paul, did you get to try Umix at all?
Yeah, I did try it. It was all right. It's not like KDE. I'm so used to KDE. It was so strange to me. So
Right. It's definitely more strange than KDE.
Yeah.
All right, Alan. Give me your take on Unix.
So this is coming from someone who's a massive Unity fanboy. I ran it as my default desktop from the first release all the way through until last year, and I love Unity. I love the workflow. I love this. In early releases, it was not super performant, but in the later releases, it was quick, and now it's as fast as KDE Plasma and faster than GNOME, which I find frustrating. So I grabbed hold of this, not knowing what to expect. I was a little surprised that I had to rummage around on a Medium blog post in order to find the download. I couldn't get it linked from GitHub or from the website. I had to go and find a Medium blog post, or actually had to ask Rocco for the blog post link to the ISO. And the fact that it's called a mini ISO and it's 1.4 gig in size. I think people have different definitions of the word mini these days. The install went fine. I thought it was interesting that the Ubiquity installer, instead of having a slideshow of images, had like inspirational quotes from famous people. I thought that was an interesting take on
I saw that.
something on there. I thought that was different. I think you have to be careful what you put in there because people can read things into, you know, what you're putting on there. But I think it's an interesting idea, quite novel. It installed perfectly fine. I did it in a VM in VirtualBox. It was fine. Most of the things I was familiar with Unity were the same. So other than the theme, I like the dark theme. I really, really liked the dark theme. It was a bit weird that I could change the theme in the appearance dialog to something else, but I can't change it back to the one that this ships with. I had to go and use the Unity tweak tool. So yeah, another +1 for adding Unity tweak tool by default, because that was useful for getting me back to the theme that it ships. Although my icons are still all messed up now, so I've messed it up slightly just by using the default settings thing. The animations, I agree with Thomas. I'm not a fan of that maximize wobble nonsense. The animations that Unity 7 shipped with were very carefully thought about, and people still don't realize the thought that went into those. When you open an application, the animation where it comes out of the launcher and appears, and then when you minimize and it shrinks back into the launcher, was to help people to know this is where your application went. It disappeared over here into the launcher. And when you first install Unity, those animations are relatively slow, but they speed up over time. So if you ran Unity for like a week or a month, those animations actually get faster because you now know where those applications went. So you don't need to be shown slowly. They just accelerate over time, which I think is cute, but those are all gone in Unix. So I think that's a bit of a shame, because that was quite innovative, I thought. It's a little inconsistent with keyboard key bindings. The icon for a terminal in the launcher launches Tilix or Tilix or however you pronounce it. But if you press Control-Alt-T to open a terminal, you get UX term. So I think it should be consistent. The keyboard shortcut should match the icon in the launcher. It has Chrome pre-installed, which I'm always very wary of. And actually the reason that Nate mentioned that the Resolve conf had a strange 127.0053 is because of Chrome. That's a system D Resolve D thing that happens to enable Chrome to be able to resolve hosts. So that's weird. And I'm always very wary of distros that ship proprietary software by default. And this one ships Chrome, mostly because you have to get permission to do that. And I doubt very much they had permission to ship Chrome on this thing. They might have, but I doubt it. I think that was basically it. It's really nice. I certainly would consider using it because it actually just ships all packages from the Ubuntu repository, as far as I can tell. The only PPA that's enabled is Chrome. So it's not like if I ran this, I would be relying on random third-party PPAs or repos
Right.
that might go away. It's stuff that's in the archive anyway that will get patched and will get security updates. So I'm way more comfortable running this than I would be some other derivatives of Ubuntu. I was pleasantly surprised. The menu thing in the top right is a bit weird. Like, I can understand why people might want to have a traditional style menu. I probably wouldn't click it very often, but it's nice that it's there, that if you really need to use it. It's just a bit weird having it over there in the top right. But other than that, I think it's great.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked about the menu, but I don't know if there would have been a better place to put it, because you don't want to really mess with the left-hand side and that whole area. So
right,
just more or less had no
plug-in kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Adam, you love Unity, don't you?
I do, yeah. I actually really enjoyed using Unity back in the day.
High five,
when
brother.
I did use it. Yeah. And I was sad at first when they announced going to GNOME, but GNOME's not that bad. I enjoyed using it. I used it on my T420, my ThinkPad. It was a pretty good experience on there. I don't know if it's just, I think it's probably the age of the machine, but things weren't as performant as I remember them. But I don't know, maybe it's just that machine. I liked the HUD. I'm glad that it's still like all the functionality that Unity had is still there. So like the things like the HUD, the launcher, all that, like really love that. The theme was okay. I think it looks okay, but it's not amazing to me. The little application menu in the top right, I didn't use that. I used it like once just to see, oh, this is kind of neat, but I left it at that. I felt the ThinkPad I have isn't like super high res, so I didn't have a whole lot of space to work with. And I felt like all the little applets that they threw in the bar at the top right kind of crowded it up a bit. The global menu is still there. Big fan of that. Saves vertical space. Again, on a small screen, that's really useful. Pretty awesome experience. I did try it out on the live USB and on KVM on my desktop. Live USB, I'd like to report that Unity still has some of the best scaling for 4K monitors out there.
Absolutely.
That's like, it's really great, and I wish other desktops were coming close. KDE is probably the closest I've come to at that point. And then when I ran it in KVM, however, I think it's an issue with my Razer mouse, but like the mouse was super erratic when running it in a KVM virtual machine. I don't know if that's something like with Compass or something specific to my mouse, because like when I run other VMs in KVM, I don't have that problem, but just with Umix itself, I had that issue. So I think it's probably the polling rate on my mouse or something. I don't know, but otherwise, pretty great distro. Really enjoyed it. It was a nice trip down memory lane, but I think as Tom said, that sometimes you want to go take a look back, but you have to move forward because Unity is just going to be what it is right now for forever, unless somebody really picks it up, or unless Canonical, for some reason picks it back up. Hint, hint. Then well, you just kind of have to. It's a nice little reach into the past, but we have to look into the future as well. So,
well, I do have that question that I want to bring up later. But we'll save that for after everybody's done. But remind me to bring that up.
All right.
And Adam, you're bringing a tear to my eye. You really are.
I miss Unity, man. I'm telling you, it was the most well designed desktop for the longest time. I think it's still probably the better designed desktop. I mean,
I think it's better than GNOME.
Yeah, you could tell people really put like time and effort into like the decisions they made with the desktop. Like it's so well designed.
Oh man, stories about going into our London office and chatting with the design team and all the plans they had for Unity. Oh, those were happy days. They really were.
Yeah.
All right, Colin, you are up, sir. Did you try Umix?
Yes, I did. I've got it running here. I'm not actually on it broadcasting. I've got it on the laptop. One person, Tony Simmons in chat, did say that nobody's mentioned the default wallpaper yet. So that was
It's really
that's a
bad.
little,
That's
little bit
horrible.
of it's a little bit of an odd default wallpaper. But one thing I noticed was when you change the wallpaper, that default wallpaper is no longer there for selection. So I found that really odd. So maybe he didn't like it either. I don't know.
Well, it may be in a different folder than
I don't know.
what the normal
It's not
backgrounds are
there.
in.
Yeah, it's like
It was strange. The other thing was he had a lot of indicators on the top panel, which you can turn off under the startup applications, even the classic menu. So I don't know why they were all there to start with. I would have thought they'd be better off to be as an option rather than there straight up. So that was one thing I sort of noticed straight off the bat. So the other thing was I thought Unity was able, the last time I used Unity, I'm sure I could move the buttons from left to right.
You can.
I did not find that option in here.
You
No.
can.
I couldn't find it
it's
either,
not
Colin.
there. Yeah.
It's
So
there.
it's not, it's there?
Mhm.
Well, show me the way, Rocco.
It's in the tweak tool.
It's in the
in
tweak
GNOME
tool.
tweak.
But it's not in the
Yeah.
Unity tweak.
It's in
There's
the
a
Unity
GNOME
tweak.
tweak.
No, it's not.
Sure it
It's
is.
not in. I can't find it. All right.
Rocco, it's a GNOME tweak.
It's not in Unity tweak. I couldn't find it. Not in the usual place. It normally used to have a separate Windows thing under the Unity tweak tool for that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Colin. It wasn't there. I couldn't find it.
Yeah. I find that when you're searching for files, you can filter the search, but you have to actually physically check to filter the files for search. But it doesn't. I don't think that search remains. That when you check that under the Unity thing that comes up, you can filter it to search for files, but it doesn't remain as that because you've got to do it again once you go out of it. Is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Whereas if you're running the GNOME desktop, it'll just search for files by default. It'll search most things in your system.
Are you talking about the dash thing that comes up when you
Yeah,
press
the
button?
Unity dash that comes up, you can filter the results and you can click on files and folders, but I don't think it holds that setting once you go out. I think you've got to actually click it again.
It's holding it here.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't
Right,
know.
okay. I'm not sure.
When I used it on 1604, it held that setting as well.
Right, I found it may hold the setting for a bit. I'm not sure, but I found that on
Maybe
some
not after
occasions.
reboot or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it was that. I'm not sure. I like the actual fact that he had open as admin in files. That was a nice little touch. So that sort of helps you out when you need to do things in the within your files. If you're doing config files or whatever, that's a great touch. So I like that. And the one thing I've noticed that I did miss in the Ubuntu GNOME is the fact you can hold the Windows key down and you've got selection of your apps on the Unity panel 1 to 10, which is a nice touch as a shortcut. So that's, yeah, I remember that. I used to use that, and that's quite a nice little touch. So, but overall, I thought it was nice. I like the theme, like a couple of other guys said, works pretty well. I just wonder whether we're at the point where we just should move on from Unity. I'm not sure. So, but it'd be nice to see Ubuntu GNOME try and up the road implement some of these things that Unity has or did have in the GNOME desktop. Would be nice. I think they're, as you can see here, some of these things are very popular. So why they haven't tried to implement them or whether they're going to, I don't know. Be nice to see.
Because it's GNOME.
So upon further review, I have checked Unity tweak tool and it's not there. I know I've seen it, Colin. I know I've seen it somewhere, but it is there somewhere. I don't.
That
it's
was
not
the
a
last
Unity
time
tweak
you
tool.
used Unity, Rocco.
No, I seen it because Thomas was actually complaining about it in the Telegram group this week.
Rocco, it's a GNOME tweaks.
No, I mean, yeah, no, I know that it's in GNOME tweaks, but this
I installed it to find it. That's why.
Yeah, and also, Colin, you got to remember that Rocco's a single clicker.
I'm a single clicker, and I also leave the close buttons on the left anyway. That's where I prefer them.
That's where they should rightfully be. Yes.
Yeah,
Just saying.
I just found myself
Fighting
going
words.
to the right. I just kept muscle memory going to the right and then back to the left.
But you see, this also goes back to what what Adam was talking about, where there was a lot of thought process put into Unity itself, and
Yep.
there's a reason why the close buttons on the Alan, tell them why the close buttons are on the left.
Because then they sit above the thing in the top left-hand corner,
Yep.
above the close, and then you can easily hit them by throwing the mouse to the top left-hand corner of the screen, but you can't easily hit them by throwing to the top right because the shutdown button is up there and the clock is up there. So it makes more sense because the title bar is integrated into the top of the screen to save space.
Basically, your applications are separated, so everything you need for your applications are on the left, and everything you need for your system is on the right. And
don't get me wrong, I haven't changed it because I think it suits the workflow of the Unity desktop. So, but it's just one of those quirky little things I look for, just in case. I just want to know that it's there or it's not there because that used to be there in Unity tweak.
Right.
Right. So yeah.
Well, that's why I said before. I knew there was going to be a lot of, like I said, I was trying to get everybody to look at Umix as its own thing, but I knew there was going to be a lot of comparison to things they didn't like about Unity itself. So that's why I tried to say to everybody, go into it with an open mind and try to get used to the workflow of Unity, and then give your take on it. So, all right, Amulith, are you a Unity fan?
I am, actually.
And
the first distro I ever tried was Ubuntu 16.04, and I love Unity. I love the HUD, all the animations, all of it. And the theme of Unix is superb. I love that it's dark. I love the icons. The Yara theme is amazing. I also like, I know this is specific to Unity, but I gotta say this is a feature I really like about Unity, that everything is in the top bar with the window controls. It saves space elsewhere, and that's a feature I love. I didn't really like the wobbly windows. That was a little bit too much. I love that it came with ZSH. That's the shell I use, and it's wonderful. I tried it in VirtualBox. Everything worked fine. And if I'm a window manager guy, I like my i3, but if I have to go with a DE, it'll be Unity. And by extension, Unix, if I have to go with a distro. And Adam, you mentioned that you'd like to see Unity more, I guess. Keep an eye on UB ports with Unity 8.
Yeah, that. I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of the direction of Unity 8, but I thought Unity 7 was magnificent.
Okay.
I didn't get to try out Unity 8, so I can't even tell you what the.
Then again, when I did try it, it was really early, so I'm sure there were a lot of changes that would have been made by the time it was ready for prime time. So
I tried it, but it was trying to give me a mobile interface on desktop, so I immediately did not like it.
It is still buggy. It's not stable yet, but keep an eye on it. It's going to be really cool, I think. I prefer Ubuntu Touch, too. That's fine.
Awesome. All right, Michael, did you get to try out Umix?
Only for a little bit. The first thing, I will say my Google Chrome did not function because I uninstalled it right away. But the first problem that I really ran into was if I did not interact with the mouse and keyboard, after literally 15 seconds, my screen would just go off. I mean, it wouldn't lock the computer, but the screen would just go off, and so that's kind of annoying when you're stopping to look something up, or you're just kind of trying to type in a Telegram group on your phone or something because you haven't gotten the app image pushed over yet or something like that. But it got quite annoying. I finally found the option. I had to go into Terminal and turn off the power setting there, so that was fun. But I I messed around with it a little bit. I surprisingly didn't really care about the buttons on the left-hand side. I kind of thought that would be a little bit bigger of a deal, but I mean, it didn't bother me at all. I kind of agree on the top right-hand corner. It's kind of busy. I think if I was going to use it further, I'd have to really kind of disable some of that. But I just did. The workflow is definitely something different, and I don't think I really had the time to fully get into it. The other thing I will say, well, there's two things actually. One, I found it really weird that there were 3 terminal programs installed by default, and like somebody else mentioned, Tilux was one way, and then the other one brought you to Xterm, which was annoying to me because you cannot increase the text size as easily as you can in something like a Quake or whatever. The other piece is just sometimes the settings were in really strange places that I would not expect them to be. So, I mean, maybe that's just part of, looking at different DEs and distros, I don't know, but that kind of, there were times where I was looking for something and then I was like, I don't know where this particular setting or whatever is. But I mean, I think with time I could probably get used to it and see how this, workflow really differs. But I didn't, because obviously I didn't use it before. But it would just take some time. But I didn't dislike it or anything. But I just didn't really get the chance to fully form an opinion one way or another overall.
All right, Barbara, you are up.
I'm up. Okay, first of all, I am still a Unity fan. And was very disappointed when Ubuntu got rid of it. And I switched with 17.10, then I switched to Ubuntu Mate. But anyway, I tried this. I really liked it. Yeah, I didn't go in with the expectation that it was going to be exactly like Unity was. So I just figured, okay, I'll take it as it is. And I really liked it. There were a couple weird little things, like I have gotten so used to the Kaya file manager because of Mate that I could not stand Nautilus. So I changed that. Took me a little bit to figure out how to do that one. Because I normally didn't have to do anything. And having 3 terminal programs, that's kind of strange. I agree with that. And I switched that. And of course, since I have Mate and a bunch of my other computers, I switched it to the Mate terminal. And all that stuff was available in the Synaptic package manager. Overall, I really did like it. I agree the default desktop, the default window was background was absolutely ugly. that was the second
Transmission
thing
begins
the first
from
thing that I changed was Chrome. I do not use Chrome. I did not open it. I went in to the package manager, changed it, deleted it. I uninstalled it and I put in Firefox. Then I was a happy camper. Yeah, that was kind of weird to have Chrome, and I really wasn't too happy with that. But other than that, I'm trying to look at my notes here. The other thing was I ended up I added a few different themes because once I went in and changed the default theme, you couldn't get back to it. And then later I found I could get back to it in the Unity tweaks, but that was just kind of strange too. But other than that, I like Unity. It worked with my workflow. This works with my workflow. And actually I've got cat problems. Sudo app
What's new?
delete cat.
I think your cat has human problems.
The cat has human problems. He'll be back. The other thing is that, I did like the way Unity worked, and I love the buttons on the left. Maybe it's because I came from Mac, and I do love my buttons on the left. So I always change them if they're on the right. The left makes more sense. We do things from left to right.
No.
Yes. You're not going to change me.
Well, it makes more sense in Unity because everything is up in the
on
left
the left,
corner.
right? And I really like I don't mind having all the little indicators and applets up on the top panel. That doesn't bother me because in Mate I have a gazillion across the top. And what I really wish was that there was an ability to add them to there. And there isn't, so, but that's okay. Maybe in the future. Do I plan to use this? Yes, I'm going to leave it on the computer I have it on. It's a ThinkPad W550S, and it works perfectly with it. The screen's a 3K screen, and it works with that very, very well. I was just really happy with it. So, yeah, Unity fangirl, I give it 2 thumbs up.
Nice. Very nice. Big Pod.
Sadly, didn't get to try it. Had a lot of real world stuff to do. But I was actually sad about couldn't try it. Really wanted to try Unity. Wasn't at the time Linux user, so didn't really see Unity in Ubuntu. So maybe next time.
Maybe next time. All right, Dave, you are up, sir. What do you think of Umix?
I actually liked it. I'm running it right now. That's what I'm on. It installed just fine, really fast. The only issue I ran into in the install was that I put in the additional Ubuntu PPAs that I normally use when I do Ubuntu distros. Went into command line, because that's where I always do it, and threw in the NVIDIA drivers from there, and it didn't like it. So I pulled them out from there, went in through the GUI additional drivers, installed the exact same drivers through there, and it liked it fine. Set up NVIDIA settings, everything worked great. I liked that you could go into the displays and scale more than just 100%, 200%, 300%, that it actually broke it down to, I think it was like 12 increments of 12%. I also don't like Chrome, so I yanked that out and put Firefox Nightly and Thunderbird in. The other little niggly tweet that I'm sure I can find the setting to change, is that the sticky edges are a little stickier than I like. So when I'm sliding windows from one monitor to the other, I'll get to the edge of the screen and it's like the window grabs, and I get tempted to grab my mouse and shove it harder to try and make the window move. But it switches between workspaces fine. I like having the launcher with all the apps that are open, and just click on the app and it jumps to that workspace. Like a lot of the other desktop environments, it works really well. It's been really smooth for me. I haven't had any problem installing any of the apps I normally use. It was a little strange to see ZSH as the default shell, but I use that as my default in my Arch distro, so that doesn't bother me. I could get used to it. It would take a while because I'm not as GUI centric as a lot of people. But it works really well, works really smooth, and I'm willing to give it a chance for a while.
Nice. Were you a Unity user before or no?
Never touched it before.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Bell, Chicken, you're up.
Hi, I guess that is us, isn't it?
Hey, nice shirt, dude. Nice shirt.
It's dynamic.
Yeah, I see that.
Mine unfortunately isn't.
Oh yeah.
Did you use
some sort of chroma key effect going on there?
I'm pretty happy with it. To be fair, it was supposed to be that background changing, but I can't get it to not default to my shirt. So
It could do better. Just a heads up.
I think it's based on what color you're making as the green screen, because your shirt's purple?
I tried a whole bunch of different shades of red, and it just murdered us.
I'll explain how chroma key works to him later.
I understand it. There's too much stuff in the background.
I didn't use Umix or Unity. The first thought when we were discussing this last week was Unity Web Player, and that's kind of where it ended for me. So, sorry.
It's okay. Were you forced to use it? That's the question.
Which one? Unity web player?
Umix.
No.
No,
Unfortunately.
okay.
I don't do that. Come
Oh
on.
yeah, right. Mhm.
It's elementary that I force people to use.
Yeah.
I used Umix for a little bit, and Unity is a great desktop. Unity 7, to be more specific. It's really good. I love the design thought that went into it. The global menus are by far the best implemented I've ever seen. They work properly with just about everything. And when it comes to indicators as well, indicators are very poorly done in Linux for the most part, but Unity nails it. Unity really gets that down, and I love it a lot. And so far, still nothing else quite works that way. Beyond that, though, as much as I like Chrome as a default, I don't know. It is a little discomforting. Like, I really like Chrome, but same thing with like Deepin. Like, it makes me a little uneasy. I wasn't a fan of like the CPU usage task manager thingy in there, but those are fine. I'm not actually sure how they added those in. I don't know if those are like Unity plugins or what.
Yeah, they're in the archive. They're just things you can install, and you just put them in auto run, and they run. There isn't a nice way to add them, unfortunately.
Okay, because I was like, I've never seen them before. But I mean, Unity itself, it runs amazing still. 4K support, high DPI support is still by far the best I've ever seen on the Linux desktop at all. It handled everything from like a 4K 11-inch laptop to I think it was like a 32-inch 4K screen. So that was great. ZSH as a default, ZSH is a great shell, but I don't think it's a suitable default to ship out. For the most part, it's compatible with a lot of bash stuff, but the syntax is different in a lot of places, and that could break things if you're not expecting it. The wallpaper was ugly. I just have to point that out. And the animations, I really loved the way Unity animations were with Ubuntu, because it was subtle and clean, and it didn't really, it wasn't like a big deal, you know. It was pretty, and it wasn't something that kind of took you out of the immersion. But I don't know, like, I like wobbly windows. They're fun, but they're a toy, and it was a little distracting, as Thomas said. In terms of stability, it was great. Ubuntu, for the most part, the underlying system was solid. Unity was solid. I thought the Yaru theme, was it the Yaru theme that came with it by default?
I don't know. I've lost it.
I don't know what it's called, but I
think it's called Vimix or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It looks great. Cat just slapped Barb.
Yeah, almost. No, he's trying to get me to pay attention to him.
Oh,
that's why I said sudo apt remove
It
cat.
was interesting though. In terms of a mini ISO, Alan, you made a good point. 1.4 gigs is a bit large for a mini ISO. I would have expected something smaller because it's like normal size. I don't actually know what the full version has, but it must be a lot. But overall, it's pretty decent. The defaults are a little strange, but if you want a solid distro shipping Unity past 1604, I think Umix is probably the only place to go, but it's also not a bad place to go.
All right. Very nice. Scrap Joel in the house.
How you doing?
What up, man?
Say again.
What up?
Nada. Just doing the music thing. I haven't messed with any distro hopping at all. My stuff's not really configured for it right now, but I got a laptop behind me that's working with KDE Neon, the latest, with Jack and Ardour. And it's got a Scarlett 2i2 hooked up to it. It's my buddy's kind of workstation right now until he can get a more workstation X type setup.
Nice.
But it works. And sad to say that I wish I'd given Ardour a chance earlier, because I found Mix Bus 5, which is from a company that's kind of attached to the Ardour team a little bit. There's a lot of open source. Basically, the only difference is like when you go to the mixer to show all your levels, it's got an entire other mixer setup that's supposed to emulate like tape consoles that are in professional studios, and that company also makes digital consoles and stuff. So, I mean,
Well-
that, I was like, oh, this is part of our door. That's cool. So I put our door on that because I wasn't about to buy another registration for it. But
Well, it's good to see you back.
it's
brother.
nice. Good to be.
All right, Tyler. I know you're not feeling well. Are you up to sharing your opinion?
I can say a couple things. So I tried it on 2 different machines. First impression is it's Unity. It's got things I like: global menu, buttons on the left, title bar integrating with the top panel, all things I do in my Plasma setup. So I tried it. The first machine I tried it on was my old Haswell i5 with my old NVIDIA card. I actually had performance problems on that, and I probably attributed that to the NVIDIA drivers. I tried it on the Galago Pro spare SSD, and on that machine it actually performed a lot better, Intel graphics, so it's not going to have as many issues. The one thing that struck me as weird was the choice of default applications. I'm a Firefox user, so I'm glad most distros have Firefox out of the box, so I wasn't a fan of Chrome shipping by default. Being Unity and having the global menu, Tilix having the header bar was an odd choice. I would have stuck with something like GNOME Terminal, which actually has a menu that'll go into the global menu bar. I did, like Barb did, replace the file manager with Kaya. And can't think of any other examples beyond that. But yeah, I found the default applications to be a bit strange.
All right. Well, I did try Umix, and I've been running it since last week's challenge, actually, and I love it. Now, I don't love every single thing about it, but there is so much to love about Unity. And then on top of the tweaks that Tony George made, some of them are just fantastic, including the theme. And I hate to be superficial like that, but the theme is one of the things that you interact with most often. For every application you run, you're seeing the theme, and that's important. It's important to me anyway. And I love the dark theme. The only problem that I had with the dark theme was I did have issues with Firefox and Thunderbird with the dark boxes and text not being readable. But Unity itself is so polished as a desktop. It's hard to not just enjoy using, like I said, if you go in with an open mind and you're not set on a specific workflow. If you go in and you try to accept the workflow that Unity offers, I think it's absolutely awesome. Scaling is awesome, as Adam said. It is the best scaling that I have seen out of anything KDE, GNOME, Budgie, any of the above. It works the best all across the board. Let me see what else notes I have here. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but the bottom right-hand corner gives you a hot corner for a view of all your windows.
Yeah, that was a nice default.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I switched that to top right like I have in Plasma.
Well, I
Same.
usually end up hitting it when I don't want to hit it when it's in the top right. I think the bottom right is actually perfect for it because there's nothing down there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go up to, say, the logout button or the clock, I usually end up going too far and hitting the hot corner, and then everything appears and I don't want it to. So I thought the bottom right corner was perfect. My printer was set up out of the box automatically and printed immediately without having to set up anything. And I guess that's due to Ubuntu drivers, but I do have issues with other Ubuntu derivatives that don't do that out of the box. The panel on all monitors is kind of a downer for me. Not so much that I wouldn't use it, because I think the one saving grace to it is if you do put your applications in full screen, they do go over the panel itself. So it doesn't stay there on a full screen window. But overall, I think it's awesome, and it is my daily driver as of right now, and will continue to be my daily driver until some disaster happens, maybe. But I absolutely love it. Now, I did want to read part of the email that Tony had sent me, and I was hoping he would come on and talk to us about it, but he obviously wasn't able to make it. But he did want to pass along some changes he plans on for the next release, which goes to some of the things you guys have talked about. So one of the additions for the next release that he plans on adding is the addition of fish shell as default. So I know that was brought up many times tonight as far as the shell. Addition of a welcome screen for installing the preferred web browser, music player, etc. So you wouldn't have Chrome installed by default. You could pick which browser you wanted installed. So that also might cut down on the comments or the negative comments. And a welcome screen option for selecting between a light and dark theme, which is another option. I don't know which is more popular. I think dark themes are becoming more popular, but it would be a nice addition to see that being an option for light or dark theme. I would also like to add that I think one of the other biggest things about Unity is the close and minimize buttons be on the left. I think that should also be an option in the welcome screen, whether or not you want them on the left or right, but maybe that's just me. Who wanted to say something?
Oh, I had a question about the browser install. Is it radial, or you have to select only one, or would it be checkboxes? Because if you're going to test it out, might as well just check all the boxes and see how well it does.
No idea what he has planned for how it's going to look. He's just throwing ideas out there of what he plans to add.
It'd be cool if they did it like Ubuntu Mate and Ubuntu Budgie, where you can just install them or remove them as you please, but they don't replace the other one.
Yep.
What's the interest in having a non-bash terminal? What's wrong with bash?
There's some nice features that the things like ZSH and Fish have. Some nice things like autocomplete, and they try and help you not have to type so much. So in my VM that I'm running Unix, I did sudo apt update and it failed because the unintended upgrades thing was running in the background. So I just waited for a few minutes and then I typed sudo and I started typing apt update and it pre-filled it.
All right, yeah.
Trying to guess what I was going to do.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the autocomplete in Fish, but one thing I found out about Fish is out of the box, I can't run snap programs in Fish.
Yeah, I've seen a bug report about that.
And do these other terminal command line things remove anything that Bash has got, or are they all additional to?
I don't think they degrade anything in any way. I think they're as add features rather than take anything away.
They
might be
run in place of it.
Yeah, they might behave slightly differently.
Yeah, you may run into compatibility issues with shell scripts, but for the most part, they're pretty compatible, I think.
But generally, with a shell script, it would
tell you which, but
or sh dash.
Yeah,
As long as they have a shebang, they should be fine.
Yeah, but sometimes you'll run into compatibility things.
Just a general terminal user, no problems in changing over just to give it a look.
I personally don't like them because I find once I'm on autopilot and I'm typing something, if the terminal tries too hard, or the shell tries too hard to guess what I'm doing, it can get it wrong, and I can type CD something and end up in a completely different place than I am expecting. And I might type something like RM, and I'm typing RM somewhere that I didn't expect to be, and I don't like that cleverness acts against me, and I don't like that.
Right. Like I said, the one issue I ran into with Fish was the snap thing, and the terminal is primarily where I use snap programs. I don't have to worry about integration issues.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Well, maybe there should be an option in the welcome screen to say what terminal you want to use.
That's an idea.
Yeah, especially if it listed what the additional features you get or something.
Did you sort your Firefox issues out with the black text in the dark theme?
I changed it to a light theme.
Oh, right. Okay. Because I'm just trying to find the extension. There's a really, really good extension that you can keep your black theme and it just makes all the dialog boxes visible again.
I'm also running that
Is
extension.
that with Thunderbird as well?
Pass.
That would be awesome. If,
The name of it is
was.
text contrast for dark themes.
That's the one. Good man.
Hey, we got to post that in the Telegram group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did have one negative thing to say, and that
Go
was
ahead.
on my ThinkPad. I did notice that the fans were running a lot, and I installed ThinkFan to adjust the curve, but even then, like I guess the machine was running pretty hot. I did notice that there was a little bit of performance degradation. Maybe that was due to overheating or something. I don't know if it's 1804, so I imagine it's just no different than any other install, but maybe
So
there
you
was
said it
something
was
they did.
a W520 or something?
Mine was a T420.
T420. So that's Sandy Bridge CPU.
Yeah.
Is like the first gen i7, or is it i5?
Second gen.
Second gen.
Is it i5
Yeah.
or i7?
i5.
The
Yeah,
i7 runs
I've-
really hot in that one.
Yeah, I've got an
Yeah, I have one.
X20 behind me, and I actually found I dug that out of a cupboard, and it had 1404 on it, and it flies like it's faster than anything else I've got, and it's on Unity. And I've upgraded it to 1604, and it still flies. I haven't upgraded it to 1804, so I wonder if there's some additional GPU stuff we've added when we went to 1804 that's made it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
I know there is a lightweight option now that arrived in 1604 or 1804 where you can dial down the graphic requirements, and it makes it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Turns off
Well,
some
right
of the
now,
transparency and stuff.
I replaced Umix with 1804 with i3, so I don't have that problem anymore. But
problem solved.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't have any kind of a real heat issue on, and this is a ThinkPad 550S W550S, and it's not hotter than it was when it was running Ubuntu Mate.
All right. Well, that is our distro challenge for the week. And I would like to thank Tony George for all of his hard work for Umix. And like we always say, if you appreciate people for what they do, then definitely support them. He does have a subscription that you can pay for. That's $11 that you get a couple different ISOs or whatever. I didn't get it for the ISOs. I just got it because I wanted to support him. And I know a couple of others did as well. So I encourage you, if you like Umix and you like what Tony George is doing, then you should support him.
Yeah, I didn't
question
realize
on
until you. Sorry.
No, carry on, Alan, please.
I didn't realize until you gave us the link to that this is the same Tony George that made. He makes a
Time
backup.
shift.
That's it. Time shift.
Time shift.
UKUU.
Yep.
Conky manager.
The
thing.
Conky manager, yeah, loads of stuff. Yeah. Quick question, Rocco. On that one where you do pay the $11, does he put his own PPPA in, and you get UKU and time shift and all that lot in?
It comes
I'm
with
not
time
sure.
shift, I think, is on there.
I'm not sure, Zeb, to be honest with you. I didn't research what all you would get with the ISO for the
Time shift not on the.
Yeah. Time shift is on here.
The only thing I find really strange about the whole thing is he's offering zero support. You have to go to the Ubuntu community to get any sort of support.
Good luck with that.
Well, in fairness, I don't know if one guy can support a distro, especially the size of Unity. I mean, that would be tough. So.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he is shipping packages directly from the archive. So, if you asked questions in support channels, you might be able to say, well, it's not Ubuntu, but I am using Unity from the archive, and you may be able to argue that it should be supported.
Yep.
But doesn't that bring up like a whole different issue about people who make little derivative distributions and then they just rely on the main distributions to support them?
Yeah, it does. But I think the argument that it's based on the archive, the same corpus of software that all of the other, it's like no different than if you installed Ubuntu and then apt installed Unity and added a theme. Like it's not far off that, and we would support that. So
is Unity 7 still available then to install if you put stock of Ubuntu on?
This is straight out of the archive.
You can install it as like a desktop package as well now, can't you?
Yeah,
Like
you could do a minimal install and then just apt install Ubuntu Unity.
Why you would do that though with global menus and those panels over every single screen in your
Because you love the design.
Because you love Unity. So.
Nostalgia.
And the other thing was as well, it's a very easy fix, but I've got like umpteen different hard disk drives. So whenever I used to put Unity on, it was like the bar on the left used to go.
Yeah,
and then it was like these 16
Okay,
million
so
yeah.
now that you say that,
right mouse click undock, right mouse click undock. Oh, I'll be there for 10 minutes undocking everything.
now that you say that, all of the hard drives get docked. So I did that for like, I don't know, 10
even
different
partitions.
hard drives. Yeah, it's even partitions.
That's two. Yeah, you're right.
But well, there was a few comments tonight that were made like Unity was nice back in the day, but maybe we should move on. I have to disagree. I disagree because it is still such a competitive desktop for users, and it is so nice. I don't see how, like, if it was something that was old and decrepit and falling away, I could say, yeah, just, let it go. But this is such a nice desktop environment. It has to be in the top 3 desktop environments out there, in my opinion.
Wow.
Well, okay.
That's brave words there.
It's worth noting that probably more desktop Linux machines shipped with Unity than any other desktop.
Mm-hmm.
In the period that Unity was the default between 2010 and 2017, Dell sold shed loads of their XPS machines, and they all ship with Unity by default until we switched to GNOME. So there's a lot of people running Unity out there.
I wish somebody would pick it up. Maybe I wish Canonical would pick it back up.
For me, Unity was always the desktop that really brought everything together. It didn't feel like it was pieced together from everything else. It felt like it was its own thing, and it was consistent, and I loved that.
Honestly, I would be okay with it if somebody picked up Unity 7 and kept it alive well enough so that once Unity 8 was stable and performing well enough and was not buggy as it is now, that you could use Unity 7 and it'd be perfectly fine. And then once Unity 8 comes out, you can just app upgrade and boom, you're done. You're on the new version and continue on with Unity like that. That would be okay with me.
Part of the problem is this is such a big code base. It's like Unity 7 itself is a plugin for Compiz, and so you're carrying Compiz as well. So whoever maintains this thing has to maintain Compiz and Nux and BAMF and libunity and all these other libraries that go with it. It's unfortunately quite a bulky amount of. The Ubuntu desktop team is not a small team, and maintain this whole suite of libraries and stuff. It's a lot of work. I would love for someone to pick it up, and I Will Cook, who I work with, who runs the Ubuntu desktop team, I poke him now and then about.
What was the reason for the switch from Unity to GNOME?
Oh, blimey. That's a good question.
That is a good question.
It's essentially because Unity 7 was put on the back burner when we moved to Unity 8 for mobile. And that was going to be the next generation of Unity, and so we had everyone working on Unity. And when we cancelled the mobile project in April last 2017 or whenever it was, we had to pick a different desktop, and there was a lot of work done to analyze which would be the best desktop to pick. And some would argue we should have picked something else. Some would say we should have picked i3, or some would say we should have picked Kate, whatever.
Sorry.
But
He's
we
a
did.
big fat blob.
Some people suggested picking Mate, going back to our roots and having a GTK2 style, GNOME 2 style twin panel thing, and it maybe even replicating Unity with the thing on the left-hand side. But it was decided that it made more sense to go where everyone else is going, which was GNOME Shell.
And 1804's GNOME, even though it's not Unity, then it's missing wonderful things like the HUD.
Yeah.
I miss the HUD.
Yeah. Same.
But I guess with like header bars, the HUD doesn't really make much sense in that way. But anyway, I think 1804's GNOME and like implementation is so similar in workflow to Unity that I have no problem switching between the two.
Yeah,
It's just
you can.
Performance is a bit frustrating.
Well, yeah.
Which you can tell when you boot into 1804 the first time from 1604 that they put in a lot of work to making it look and work a lot like Unity for the people who were coming from Unity. Because I first used that GNOME implementation. I configured it myself because I saw a screenshot of what 1804 was looking like at the time. I did not have hardware to run 1804. I only had hardware to run 1404. So I configured it myself to make it look the same so I could get used to it. And I got used to it really quickly because it was similar. So I do not blame them for using that configuration specifically. It's just, I miss the search functionality and I miss the HUD. And there's so many other things in Unity that I miss that I wish they could implement it into GNOME, and there are projects out there trying to do some of these things, but either it's extremely difficult or they can't, or it's alpha or beta.
In regards to, sorry, Colin?
No, go on, Chicken.
Oh, I was going to say in regards to similarities between the two, I think it was you, Alan, you posted a screenshot of your desktop or a part of it the other day, and I was like, is that Unity? Like, I thought you were still running Unity, and you're like, no, it's GNOME. I was like, it looks exactly like it, but that was really impressive to me. But with search and stuff, like GNOME does have a really good search function.
Yeah.
It's just not very flexible.
Yeah, and so the one thing that I always loved about Unity that GNOME does not do is in Unity, if you go to that global menu and you're looking for a very specific file and you don't remember exactly where it's at, you can just search for the name of that file and it can find it. And it can tell you where it is and open it right up. Whereas GNOME, by default, it only searches applications. It doesn't search files. There are extensions to give it that file searching functionality, but they the only one that I know of is extremely heavy on your system, as if GNOME isn't heavy enough on its own. And using that along with the strain that GNOME presents, I don't think it really presents itself as a viable option just yet. So, yeah.
I don't know if it's the default in GNOME otherwise, but Ubuntu's GNOME does have file search enabled by default, but it's not the lowest priority.
So a quick question then on that file search by default. Does that mean that updatedb.conf opens up and fires up in the background every time you start up, or how does it maintain the database if you're continually adding files?
I do not know.
Zeitgeist, I think, is the daemon that tracks what's going on, because it's not just finding files, it's finding recent files and files you touched at a certain time. The whole, there were so many plans for this stuff. It's quite sad.
So it is running a background job either permanently or periodically that updates the database so it can find stuff instantly.
Yes.
Right.
And I think on the older versions, what it would do is you would start it up, and that daemon would rev up a little bit more, logging that stuff, and then when you go actually searching for a file, it revs up even more, and that's why the older versions were so slow. But they've done something to make it a little bit more streamlined, so it doesn't do that as much. I might be wrong, and it could just be I'm running it on better hardware, because I remember I was running Unity on a dual-core 2 gigahertz CPU with 1 gigabyte of RAM. I'm running it on the VM had 2.3 gigahertz quad-core dual 2 gigs of RAM. So, that's a little bit of a performance difference.
All right. I think we've covered that enough. We need to move on. All right. We do need to pick a distro for next week. So while we're continuing on, you need to think of some suggestions for this week, for this coming week.
Well, Rocco, there was some interesting chat on Telegram talking about having a look at applications rather than distros if we're running out of distros to look at.
Running out of distros.
I don't think
Yeah.
we're
200
running out of them,
distros, aren't
but
there? 300.
No, I'm just saying what I've seen in chat, but
I
they're also
definitely
saying we do too many Ubuntu base.
I definitely think that looking at applications is a good idea. I don't know if we want to start it this week, but it's
Yep.
definitely an idea to go for. But yeah, definitely think about a distro for this week.
If you
I
guys
mean,
are
look at
interested in application specific stuff, I do have a series on YouTube. Just saying.
That is
Cool.
I mean,
Michael?
just looking at DistroWatch, we have new releases of Endless, Project Trident, Deepin, Arco, Netrunner.
And I think
You know-
not too long ago, like Calculate came out with a new release, and
I think
a few
Magia
other-
came out with a release somewhat
Right.
recently too. I haven't looked at Magia, which is Mandrake based.
Yeah, I don't think we've looked at that yet. I don't think we've.
It's an
done
RPM.
on
We've done a lot of Debian, so maybe we should do an RPM.
Have they done a recent stable release? I know they've done a recent beta.
And as much as I
Oh, I
love
don't
Arco, they put out a new ISO every month. They're just updating it for the month. It's not really a new release.
Yeah,
Right.
similar to MX's snapshots, just saves you
Right.
Right.
having to download a file that was 6 months old and then doing all the updates. Something that I think Solus could take a leaf out of.
Definitely important, especially if you've got newer hardware.
Magia 6.1, October 2018.
Magia 7 is in beta 1 right now, so
Have we ever done a straight Debian? I've been messing around with that in the VM. That can be a little bit complex.
Somebody mentioned that last time about doing.
Might want to hold
Straight.
on that.
Yeah.
I mentioned it and got shot down Telegram.
There's going to be a new version coming soon.
Yeah.
probably this.
You might want to hold on that just a little bit.
Soonish. Yeah, then we should definitely wait.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
they're in
I'm
the.
not sure how long, but
they're in the feature
soonish.
freeze, aren't they?
Yeah.
They just entered it.
Something
Oh, I
like
didn't
that.
know. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
Busker.
Well, think
Yeah.
about it. I would like to talk to Michael. Michael, you are a new member to the community and a new member to Linux as well.
Right. It's probably 2 months now, just a little bit over, I think. So I am, like I mentioned last week, I'm currently on Mint 19.1. I've tried a couple other things in the meantime as well, but I've been focusing mostly on that as my daily driver. I had tried Manjaro briefly before that, but I could not get the NVIDIA. I had the same NVIDIA driver issue that I had on Tumbleweed, so I have to eventually figure that out if I'm going to. It sounds like Ubuntu does something a little bit different with the driver for NVIDIA, and so my external monitor just does not want to work when I install those on something beyond Ubuntu so far. But I'm going to have to just keep looking at that as I venture out into other distros.
Right. Well, let's go back to the beginning. So you just started using Linux a few months ago, but so where did you start in computing in Windows itself?
Windows 3.1, back on an old 486.
All right. So would you consider yourself a power Windows user, someone who's going to edit the registry and tweak everything, or tweak what you're allowed to tweak, I should say, and or would you just consider yourself a regular Windows user?
I'm probably somewhere in between. Like, if I could figure out what the registry entry was, from Google or whatever, then I had no problem going in and deleting it or updating it or whatever. But I mean, as far as like just being able to figure it out, just because I knew the application or whatever, that's not necessarily something I would be overly comfortable or not really able to do. So kind of in between. I did do help desk for a while there, and we had to delete registry entries as part of that. So I mean, once I got in there, I was fine. It's just a matter of making sure I know which key we're actually looking for.
I could edit the registry as well. I also had to reformat a lot. Just saying.
Well, yeah, but was that because of Windows?
No, that was probably because of me.
Was that a picnic error?
Throwing it out there. If anybody wants to ask Michael any questions about his Linux journey, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, is there anything that you can't do on Linux that you used to do on Windows?
Well, that's kind of a trick question because, like, the entire reason I really began to consider moving over to Linux was there was nothing on Windows where I was really doing it, and I was like, well, I couldn't do it on Linux. You know, I'm not a big Photoshop user. I'm not a big Adobe user, so that wasn't a concern. I just don't game as much as I used to on PC, so that was a thing for a while. But I mean, like, even now, Linux has come so far with gaming with the Steam Proton, Steam Play, and Lutris and all that stuff. I mean, even then, like, that's a nice thing anyway. But no, I mean, there was just nothing left on Windows that I absolutely had to use Windows for. I mean, Office is one thing, but I mean, if I absolutely have to do something for school that I have to do in Office, I could always pop over to my work PC because I'm doing that through work. So.
And does Office on the web not satisfy that then, or is it not feature rich enough?
I think you have to actually pay for that if you don't have a work account.
Like basic or like actually online version is wholly free, but the problem is it's quite don't have enough features for most people as far as
right. And it's, I mean, from all I understand, unless I'm dealing with a really complicated Word document or something deep in Excel, then I mean, it sounds like LibreOffice is going to do what I need to do.
All right. So you mentioned about coming to Linux. Like, so what specifically made you want to come to Linux?
Oh, I just, YouTube stuff. I randomly saw people really start talking about Manjaro for some reason. I think they had released a new version or something. I was just like, it's been a while. I did try Linux for a little bit, not for an extensive period of time. I ended up having a hard drive error on the PC, but I mean, I ended up trying it way back in 2008, but there was the hard drive had an input-output error, so I ended up having to send that in to get that replaced with the warranty and all that. But at that point, it just wasn't convenient for me to switch over because I was finishing up school and stuff like that. So. But then again, I could say that now, so I guess that doesn't really apply. But it just wasn't quite there for me yet. But I just, I'd been looking at it and I was tired of Windows. I've been running it since 3.1, and just finally started messing with Mint, and liked what I was seeing. And eventually, I'm just like, well, I mean, there's no point in keeping Windows.
Right. Well, you mentioned using Mint, and you said you may end up going to other distros, and there's a lot of people who come from Windows. Obviously Linux Mint is a big distro for new users. So, is it something that you see in other distros that Linux Mint doesn't have, or like we had that challenge last week, and we talked about there was the big theme of, well, Linux Mint is great, but just something about it is kind of like for new users. So what is your take on that?
Well, to me, it's more like, I mean, could I do some crazy stuff in Mint and really kind of try to run bleeding edge or something like that? Sure, I probably could figure out some ways to do it. I mean, it would be really complicated, but I mean, Mint's not the right tool for that job. If you want to run, if you want to run really bleeding edge, you run like Arch or straight Arch or something like that. But, I just feel like I'm one of those people that I really like tinker with things. I really like to kind of get into the details. And I just see myself using something where you can do a bit more tinkering once I get a bit more used to Linux. I've been looking at the Arco Linux YouTube channel a little bit, just seeing what they kind of got over there, because I mean, it's kind of geared toward learning Arch. So I'm interested in that piece. I don't know that I'll end up going, Arch and be one of those people, but I do see myself using something that has a bit more tweakability in the future.
So when you first came to Linux, what was the hardest thing for you to get used to?
That's a good question, really, because I mean, like I kind of talked about last week, like for me, Mint was very intuitive as to where things were. I've been messing with computers so long at this point, just from daily work now and just all that. I mean, I know a lot of the tricks, and a lot of the tricks from Windows apply to Mint. I think really it's, to me, the biggest thing right now is just learning some of those commands, learning kind of like, because there's, hundreds, thousands, millions maybe of them, and just learning that and learning how they fit together in, because I mean, like I said, the power settings that I had to find, I eventually found the setting somewhere where somebody was talking about it, but I think it's stuff like that where it's just something where it's off in the terminal, and it's not something that most people are going to touch a lot and stuff like that.
I think you will find that while there are like hundreds of thousands of commands in the terminal, you usually end up using the same 20 over and over and over again.
Oh, I can definitely see that.
Yep. And if you're into like learning Linux, I think Arco is a great place to do that.
Yes.
Because of the amount of information that Eric puts out and the amount of videos he has, and the way that Arco is set up to be that learning phase where you start out doing this and then they step you up to every different level. So I think that's an awesome choice to go with.
Yeah. Eric's education background really shines in the videos.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know that, like I say, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to want to run like Arch eventually, but I do think that's going to give me a really good idea of like how it's all kind of put together and stuff like that. Because I mean, what I tend to be really good at is just figuring out, okay, here's the big picture, and this is how whatever we're looking at changes that big picture. So kind of being able to understand it from that perspective makes things easier for me to kind of get a handle on.
Very nice. Well, man, welcome to the community, and
yeah,
wish you
welcome.
the best in learning the ins and outs.
Well, thanks. And I will say one thing that's really cool is just all the distro people that we end up having in here. From Ubuntu to MX to all the others. It's just kind of cool to see that happening in the Telegram groups and whatnot.
Michael, are you on the Telegram?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I just found that not too long ago. It's pretty neat.
Yep, and where is Dolphin, by the way? Anyway, he should be here.
We'll make sure you get on Elementary OS soon enough. So
Stop it, chicken! Stop it!
Don't you worry, chicken. We'll get onto that one in a minute, mate. I'm primed and ready with a link.
Before I get him on DropperOS.
All right, so I wanted to read an email from Jim, who he sent this directly to you, Thomas.
Oh
no. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, the other week you talked about CentOS and the kernel, and he said, people. Yes, CentOS 7. Is that how you say it? CentOS? Which way is it?
I typically say CentOS.
Yeah.
Okay. Both are okay.
That ships with kernel 3.10 and question mark. This is Linux. This is fixable. Quick Google search shows how to upgrade your kernel in CentOS, among several others. So just because it came with the install doesn't mean you are stuck with it.
You make a very good point. I'm talking directly to the person who's emailed this. How about this? He makes a very good point. You can very easily upgrade. However, I'm a first-time CentOS user. I do not know very much about it at all. I had to dig around in the command line a little bit to figure out what the package manager was. And once I did that, once I figured out what my package manager was, it wasn't as hard. But figuring out how to just push yourself from the default kernel that you're supposed to be using to whatever the beta kernel is or something like that, doing things like that is more edge case, and most of the time you're probably not going to do that. The only time I have ever had to put myself on a non-standard kernel was I was using Linux Mint, and for some odd reason my kernel was not updating, so I had to manually do it. And also now I don't even run the standard kernel. I don't run generic kernel. I run the LaCourx kernel because lower latency helps me in gaming sometimes because your frame times are important, and the low latency kernel helps with that. And also because since I'm a Draugr OS developer and the Draugr OS kernel is the LaCourx kernel, when I develop for it, having the same kernel helps, so that, you know, if I run into a bug with that kernel, I'm just like, oh, hey, I might run into this in the actual deployment. Let's find a way to fix this if I can. But at the same time, you know, you don't want to have to. You shouldn't have to put in the effort just to get yourself on a 4 series kernel. That being said, there were multiple people who did say that this is a kernel known working and extremely stable with that release, so it would be fine. It's just, I am not familiar with the server landscape. I'm familiar with the desktop landscape. So for me, this was a very big culture shock to see this. So
after we talked about it, I decided to give it a try because I was a little surprised by the old kernel version. And I've actually got 2 separate server machines that CentOS won't even boot in because the kernel's too old. So, like, it's not that you can't change it, but the thing is that if you can't even boot in with it, there's a problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which typically I would tell people who would be setting up a server, if they ask me what OS to run, I would tell them Ubuntu server, because Ubuntu server is so, it's really similar to desktop Ubuntu, because, you know, you rip the desktop off of Ubuntu and what do you have? Basically Ubuntu server. There are some other changes underneath that, but overall you just have Ubuntu with no desktop. It's just a TTY shell. And you can take to the Stack Exchange and just tell them you're running Ubuntu, and most of the time, you know, they can tell you, oh, hey, just do this. But, you know, if they tell you to do something with the GUI, you know, you can't. But most of the time, you're perfectly fine.
So the thing about CentOS is, and remember, it is based on RHEL. So when it comes to RHEL, you're generally going to buy machines that are designed to run RHEL. They either come with RHEL pre-installed, or they're designed to run those things. And CentOS should be considered no different, because all it is just the community enterprise, hence the Cent version of Red Hat. And, you know, they do ship an older kernel, but they do ship patches and other updates to that kernel that allow even new, you know, we have newer servers at work and stuff that run CentOS. And, you know, you look at the hardware, you're like, there's no way in hell that this 3.10 is going to run, but it does, because it was designed to run with that hardware. And so it looks bad that it's old. It looks bad that, oh, it doesn't run on my, you know, my fancy schmancy 1U rack I bought off eBay, but it's not that rack mounted server probably wasn't designed to run CentOS or RHEL. Yeah. And that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of why Red Hat isn't as popular in the cloud, and that's a whole different other story. But you know, that's just something that people have to take into consideration when looking at distros like CentOS, is that it's not based on, it's not, you know, Ubuntu is a very general purpose OS, but CentOS is really just meant for enterprise stuff.
I would recommend the best thing from it, if you want to stick towards that kind of stuff, would be Fedora server. Fedora server is pretty.
Yeah, that'd probably be the best analog to Ubuntu server for Red Hat.
Yeah, I would agree. And some of it depends, you know, how long. I mean, the update cycles are going to be a lot quicker with like Fedora or Ubuntu, and that could be problematic depending on what application you're running on top of your server. So you have to be cognizant of that, not in addition to the hardware that you're running it on. And so
you
if you
don't have to update, though. I mean, with CentOS,
no, you don't.
You're looking at like years, but if you just don't update, it's the same thing.
Agreed. Yep, that's true. You don't have to, but it's something to take into consideration, though, and oftentimes, like Adam said, when you look at the hardware that you are running it on, if it's an enterprise, they're going to want to look and make sure that it's certified to run on that. And you'll find that Fedora won't be on the list. So you'll have to take that into consideration as well. Depends on what kind of support you're looking for.
And also, if you don't update, aren't you leaving yourself exposed to security risks?
No, you can have
Yes.
updates from the security side now. So like the LTS is 5 years. So, and if you also have the enterprise version, you could have it extended because I mean 12.04 is still being supported from the extended version as well. So you don't have to upgrade the entire core as long just to get security updates and stuff, especially if the applications you're using don't require you to have new like toolkits and stuff.
Right, that's with Ubuntu. But if you talk about Fedora server, then it's a different.
Fedora server requires you to update because
Exactly.
they have like a 1 year minimum. I mean, 1 year maximum support or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a different ballgame then.
And also, sometimes there are certain things that the updates will give you support for. Like, for instance, I know that the 420 kernel that's rolling out right now, it is bringing support for the RTX cards and AMD FreeSync. But if you need that on a server, what are you doing? You know, if you need that for an actual RTX card for the ray tracing, then okay, you're doing something weird, but it's understandable, but you shouldn't need a FreeSync. So I wouldn't expect them to backport features like that specifically, but specific other features that would give you some more performance, I could kind of see that, but this is why you don't run CentOS or Red Hat server as a desktop, because the kernels are different. They can do the same things, but they're not meant to.
So you mentioned that the new features aren't just, they still apply to enterprise as well. And it's not necessarily, you don't need FreeSync or anything, but we had a server that we were going to run a bunch of Docker containers on, and it was a 1604 server, and we had to run the hardware enablement stack for the HBA that we had inside the server to work properly. So, sometimes you need newer kernels for newer devices and servers as well. It's not just about desktop stuff, but it's kind of sucks that CentOS doesn't provide that, but they do add a lot of device drivers into the kernel. They just keep the same version. They're just backporting things from newer stuff into the older version of the kernel.
Yeah. Which my whole thing with updating to the kernel is it's potentially possible that something may not get backported or that a backport may not work. It's a bug, bugs happen. So I always feel that being on the latest kernel version is better. And if a backport does have a bug, you're not running a backport. You're running the original code. So I don't know if that's ever actually happened because I tend to avoid that. But
there's something to be said for the security hardening that companies like Red Hat, Ubuntu, and SUSE put into those kernels to make sure that they are hardened for enterprise use.
Yeah,
I mean, I know the latest kernels are better, but I think that the work that they put into it, the extra work that they put into it, the patching, the testing, that counts for something.
Yeah.
And again, it does come back to certification. I trust what the vendor provides me more than I would a mainline kernel that I just pull off of UKUU, for example.
That is a big worry I have when a lot of people are using kernels via tools like UKUU. They're actually using plain upstream, unpatched, no security updates type of kernels, and you're just opening yourself up.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So if the vendor says, "Hey, we're using 420 now," then awesome, I'll take that. But otherwise, it's dangerous.
Yep.
Michael Tennell in the house.
What
up? What up?
Hello.
Did you get done editing yet?
Technically, yes. I'm now doing the metadata, but the editing's done, the rendering's done, and the uploading's current.
Nice.
Sounds good.
All right. Chicken.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about your favorite subject.
Oh,
plasma.
and our good friend Jason Evangelo.
He's so cool. He's really cool. He's awesome.
So, link in the main chat for people who aren't aware of what Chicken is going to be talking about. And I just have to say, I'm surprised. This thing is rocking.
Nice. It has improved a lot. Oh, we don't. Okay, we're talking.
Start from the beginning here, Chicken.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Just let's not tell anyone what's going on. So recently, I think 4 days ago now, writer from Forbes, Jason. How did you say his last name?
I said Evangelo.
Evangelo. That I think that's pretty close. Yeah, I've never heard it. So, he tweeted out an elementary OS challenge. He's got a blog post about it, and I guess it's not a blog post; it's a Forbes article. But the general gist of it is, for a couple of weeks, ditch Mac OS, Windows, or whatever distro you're using, and just try elementary OS as your primary driver. And the really cool thing about it was it wasn't just kind of like a normal Linux user kind of thing. You know, we were seeing activity from some mainstream Windows users and stuff like that too. Like over 100 people pouring into a little Telegram group to try this and really give it a shot. And we could potentially be seeing that happen with other distros as well. So I think it's a really, really cool project, and I've been having a lot of fun seeing some cool things the community's been doing.
Yeah, I think that's a... Go ahead, Zeb.
I was going to say there's 180 members in the group now.
Oh, it jumped today.
Yes, it did jump because there was only 120 some before I checked.
That's amazing.
But you wrote an article, Chicken.
I did. It's my first technically published article.
It was a great read.
Oh, thank
and
you.
it was about the whole process, not just about elementary, although you did like kind of go off on elementary. It was about the whole process of people coming together in the Linux community and just working together and seeing it actually happen, which was a great process. And do we have that link for your article, Chicken?
Yeah, absolutely.
You put it in there, and people can
Google
check it out. And in that article, I think is a link to the Telegram group, the Elementary Challenge Telegram group. I believe if anybody would like to learn more about it, you can visit Jason's Twitter, and you can find his tweet about it. And if you want to, take the Elementary Challenge. So there you go. Hey, I seen a video the other day, actually yesterday I think it was, about a browser, Chicken, from Cassidy James.
Is that so?
So this browser is I know we brought up, what did we bring up? A browser last week? Or the week before? But anyway, this browser is called Ephemeral.
Ephemeral.
I believe it. And it is basically if you've used Firefox Focus before, it is basically that for the desktop, where everything is in private browsing mode. It also comes with a toolbar button to open whatever link you might want to open up in your choice of browsers that are installed on your system. And I'm not a huge fan of multiple other browsers or different browsers, because I don't think they offer the functionality that a Firefox or maybe even a Chrome offers because of the add-on system or the extension system, or however you want to say it. But I do think that this has a place for people to use. What are you guys interested in this? Have you seen it?
Well, as you know,
I've read about it, but I don't. He almost describes what the average user does anyway in his article about it, where he says if people think they want an ultra private browser, they just click up in the top right hand corner and choose new incognito window. But I guess it's another tool in someone's toolbox who wants to try and stay anonymous. So it's not something that I would necessarily use, but for those people out there who constantly wear a tinfoil hat, I think it's a good addition.
It would probably be a good browser to add into a distro like Tails or Kali, if it's geared towards that, because those distros are generally like.
Well, two things, Scrap, is one, I put a video link in the YouTube chat for the video by Axel. He makes Linux videos, and it tells you about Ephemeral. But to your point, Scrap, I was talking to other people, and I don't think that it's going to be able to, at least not as of yet, going to be able to be used on anything besides elementary OS.
Mm-hmm. They said that they weren't planning on doing it outside yet.
Yeah, that might change. I was approached by someone who was looking at packaging it in a cross-distribution packaging scheme.
Maybe like Snap or
Snap
something?
it up.
That's certainly one.
Possibly.
thing.
That's an option.
That's
I thought it was Flatpak.
No. It's
As
Snap.
long as all support requests and flags go to whoever's packaging that and not Cassidy James, that's probably fine. One of the issues they've had with people packaging their apps for other platforms is that they're getting people filing bug reports on other platforms that don't happen in elementary OS.
Yes, I was going to say that's exactly what I said to the person who asked me about packaging it. Is just be super sensitive to the fact that some upstreams don't like their software being distributed and would rather the support went to the person who maintains the package. So whether it will appear on, I mean, it's free software, so like you can't stop someone redistributing it somewhere else, but you have to be sensitive to their requirements and, you know, not push a significant support burden. And if this browser exists on elementary only, then there's a total maximum number of people who are ever going to see it.
Yes,
you know, 100,000 or whatever. If you made it available on Fedora or made it available in the Arch user repository, then that, you know, number of people goes up a bit. And so, you know, you have to be sensitive to that.
I do think something like Snap would be a good idea for a browser like this. Containment would be another benefit of it. I think that would be an ideal option.
It's a good selling point, especially the whole raison d'etre of the application is, you know, keep things in a box that, you know, nothing can look in and it can't look out. And
yeah,
you know,
it's very fitting.
Yep.
We'll see.
Michael, you're kind of quiet on this. What's the deal?
Other people talking. I'm not rude.
I'm mad that it's not pleasant.
Why is everybody laughing?
You usually have no problem talking, Michael.
Okay, where's the pod? Because that's not Michael.
Well, I mean, I like the idea. I mean, I'm not going to use it because it requires elementary to use it. So I'm not. I tried it out, and it's interesting. It's kind of limited, but it's an interesting approach. But as far as like the private browsing, I think the container system is more useful. So I rarely use the private browsing anyway.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is it possible to make Firefox the same way? Is it to make it like that type of system where it's always private mode?
Yeah. You'd have to modify your desktop file, but like when it'll launch, you can make it launch directly into private browsing always.
One thing I did like about it, because it is kind of minimal though, is they do have a little thing to open whatever you're on in your main browser. So if you've got Chrome or Firefox or even Epiphany, God help you if you're still using Epiphany.
Didn't they switch to Epiphany on the default?
It's the default, yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
There's some irony in that.
So, I have a quick question here.
Yeah.
Would a browser like Tor, which is essentially a bunch of add-ons piled into Firefox, benefit from being piled into something like this, Ephemeral, or whatever it's called?
Not really, because Tor is a bigger project for multiple platforms.
Well, I get that, but I mean, like, as far as like a privacy standpoint, would it make Tor more private, or would it not matter because Tor already does that, or something like that?
The Tor browser would not benefit from this. The features that are in the Tor browser might benefit Ephemeral, but I don't think the Tor browser would be benefited from this at all.
Okay.
Because they do other things. Like private browsing itself has nothing to do with privacy. It's just it's not going to track. It's not going to save cookies. It's not going to save your history on your own computer. Privacy and security is not relevant in that aspect.
Okay.
Not that impressive, if you ask me.
All right. Well, we have to pick a distro for next week.
Red Core.
Red Core.
Red Star.
Red Star?
Yeah.
No.
I've heard of that one. Red Star.
This North Korea's.
Does anybody have any real suggestion?
No, it was real because we were actually chatting about it in the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
Red Core is a Gentoo made easy distro.
Yes.
It's actually fairly nice and good and solid.
Yeah, and it's got LXQ.
Suggestion.
Except the 4 times I work it, it won't start on my machine at all. Works in a VM, but won't work off a live USB.
You just got to calculate it more.
That's a different distro.
Calculate works
Also a good-
perfectly well, but Red Core I could never
Good
get.
suggestion as well.
All right, so we have Red Core as a suggestion. Any other suggestions?
I'd be interested in trying.
Magia.
Magia what is the latest release on Magia?
It's October.
I mean,
Yeah.
what number? What version?
6.1.
Yeah, 6.1.
6.1.
October 2018.
So if we went with Magia, would you want to try the 6.1 or would you want to try the beta?
I would go with the beta because 6.1's pretty kind of old.
Yeah, it's life on the edge.
I'd be up for the 7 beta 1.
All right. Any other suggestions for?
Should we wait till it's released before we?
Sometimes it's good to do a beta. What's the other RPM based one though?
Open Mandriva.
No.
Yeah, it's
It's a
Mandriva.
Russian. It's a Russian one that was fought for.
Rosa.
Rosa. Yes,
Yeah.
that's enough.
We
another,
haven't done that.
That's another possibility for an RPM.
Is that-
Rosa.
Didn't we
Isn't it
mention
also
Bodhi
Mandrake
as
based?
well?
That's RPM based. Yeah.
Yes. Didn't we mention Bodhi as well somewhere last week or week before? Bodhi Linux?
Have we ever tried Bodhi?
We have not.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
But I think Nate made a very good point. We've done an awful lot of Debian and Ubuntu's.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of.
Have you ever done Gecko?
We did.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
did.
did.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
All right.
I could go for Rosa. I've run that before. It's a nice distro.
All right. What's your opinions?
Well, should we just
Press.
have a vote whether we go RPM or?
Well,
Gentoo?
Colin, I don't care.
Let's go RPM, but
What do you mean by RPM?
Let's go Snap.
it's not Ubuntu based.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
RPM based.
you want to go with Rosa? Or you want to go with Magia?
I think if you're gonna do like submit bug reports and stuff like that, Magia would be it would be helpful to them because they're getting ready for 7.
Well, that's
Oh,
that's
there we
that's the problem there. Do you test the beta and give them feedback, or do you wait till the final release and then test it?
I would say some developers are okay with that. Some developers would rather not because they want you to see their best work. So
yeah,
It's a community project.
They put it out there. You
All right,
can't
let's-
put a beta out there and then complain that people are testing it.
All right, let's
How
take a
long-
vote.
how long does it
Let's
relate?
take a vote. Let's take a vote. Who wants to go with Magia? Raise your hand. 4, 5, 6, 7. Who wants to go with Rosa?
What was Rosa again?
4.
This is a Russian-based Mandrake spin-off. It's probably one of the best LXQT versions I've ever seen.
Telex QT.
That sounds pretty.
And I hate
awesome.
LXQT.
Michael, Tyler, I can't see your hands. Okay, so you have to let us know what you want to choose.
Count all those.
I
I
guess
have
I'm
no idea on the
Magia
difference. So
beta.
I have no idea.
I'm good with either.
All right, well, it was a tie, basically.
Well, it's up to you, Rocco.
As,
All right, let's go with
as
Rosa.
Big Daddy Linux, you get the deciding vote.
Let's go with Rosa, and then
Rosa?
we'll be able to try Magia out as a regular release, and maybe some
Sounds
of the
good.
bugs will be fixed then.
Is that ROSA?
Yeah.
ROSA, yes.
Yeah.
Zeb, you got a link?
www.rosalab.com.
Ooh, Rosa Lab.
Rosa
Yeah.
Labs, and they make the Rosa image writer, which is fabulous.
Pretty fantastic.
It is fabulous.
and that's a .com.
It's in the YouTube chat.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. It's 11 o'clock. So we are at the ending point here. So last word for everybody. PZ.
I'll say it again because I don't think people really listened, or not didn't really listen, but maybe they didn't think that I was being really, really serious. Yeah. The elementary OS is astounding. I just can't I've tried it before, and I've always gone, next, not for me. But I've been on it 3 days now, and I can't find a single thing wrong with it. Okay, it's got the X in the top left-hand corner, but hey, get used to it. That's what the whole part of the challenge is.
That's where it's
Can
supposed
you
to be.
change your working practices? The only thing I did change from the default is I went double-click. But yeah, Elementary OS, give it a whirl. It's great.
All right, Peter, last word.
Just loving being here. I wanted you all to know that. For those of us who are in the snow and ice, be safe.
Agreed. Nate, last word, brother.
Hey, thanks for still having me. I appreciate it. It was fun, and look forward to doing Rosa Linux next week.
Very nice. Thomas, last word.
If you get a chance, definitely do the Elementary OS challenge. But if you need something more gaming oriented, check out Draugr OS at draugeros.ml.
Michael, he's getting better.
I learned from the best.
Dan, last word.
Thanks for everything you do, Rocco. It's great being here. And I'd like to say it was a fun trip down memory lane with Umix, and looking forward to something a little different with Rosa.
Nice. Paul, last word.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I've learned so much, watching these, and I look forward to this one because it says it's based on KDE.
All right, Alan, last word.
Hello. So I'm going to be at FOSDEM in 2 weeks in Belgium on the weekend. So not next weekend, but the weekend after. So if anyone's watching who is thinking of going to FOSDEM, which is one of the biggest free software developer conferences in the world, come and say hello, because I'll be there wandering around, probably wearing something Ubuntu colored.
Nice. Adam, last word.
Thanks for having me, Rocco. And I had a couple weeks of time away from Linux, and it's nice to be back.
Good to have you back, brother. Colin, last word.
Thanks for the live stream, Rocco. Thanks for the beards, looking awesome. Thanks for the write-up, Chicken. You've got me wanting to use Elementary again, or try it at least, so I might give it a go. And Zeb's really got me thinking even harder about it. So, and looking forward to trying Rosa this week. Should be interesting.
All right, Amalith, last word.
It's been a few weeks or a few months actually, since I've been on, and that's because I've been working really hard, hosting a bunch of different applications and websites, and you can go to mixnet.xyz to check them all out.
Awesome. Michael, last word.
Yeah. So if you're a new Linux user, rather, and you're in a grub menu, do not cat/star. That is a very bad move.
No, it's just a very long move.
Yeah.
And you cannot Control-C out of that because it's already figured out that it's figured out all the data. It's just trying to display it all.
Great. How about the old F4? Big Pot, last word.
Again, like last week, thanks for having me, and hopefully next week I will be able to check out Rosa this week.
Yep. Nice. Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco, for the room. Thank you, Zeb, for all you do. Thank you for introducing me to Unity through Umix. It's a nice desktop, and I think I'm going to enjoy playing with it for a while. And thank you all.
All right, Bell, last word. Anything? Got nothing?
No, I will give Rosa a try, courtesy of Chicken's efforts to put it on my laptop. So I'll let you guys know how it goes.
Awesome. Chicken, last word.
I've been having a lot of fun this week, seeing the community get together and do some awesome things. And Zeb is absolutely right. There's been some big changes since the release of Juno. But I'd really like to see other distros eventually hop in and have like a challenge thing go on, because when the community comes together, helps each other out, and everything just goes smoothly, it's really nice.
Scrap y'all. Last word.
So we're talking about doing distro hopping and things and checking out new stuff. One thing I found that really helped me out one day, I didn't have a laptop of my own to write any flash drives, but if you have F-Droid store, alternative store that has like open source stuff on it, look up Etch Droid, like Etcher, but Etch. And if you have an OTG adapter, you can put any USB thing that you need and just write it from your phone. It helped me out in a pinch one day. I was at a buddy's house and I didn't have a live CD, but I had these in my pocket somehow.
Somehow you had one of those in your pocket.
Cool. That's cool.
Sweet.
Awesome. I love it.
Right in the back all the time.
So
Sounds like a topic for a new show. What has Scrap got in his pockets this week?
just bits and pieces. That's where the scrap comes in.
Uh-huh. Tyler, last word.
I should put something interesting here.
Exactly. Michael, last word.
I have nothing to say.
That is impossible, Michael.
Liar.
That is technically impossible.
Nothing to say at tuxdigital.com.
Exactly.
/ Tux Digital.
Yep. Tuxdigital.com. This Week in Linux comes out tomorrow morning. It'll be actually be on time.
Oh yeah, Michael, good job on that Floss Weekly.
Thank you. By the way, if you haven't seen that, you should check it out because we talked about blockchain and cryptocurrencies and Monero specifically.
Yeah, you blew my mind.
All right. Thank you very much to Tony George for all his efforts. Thank you to each and every one of you guys for showing up. And if you're watching this and you want to see more about each and every one of these people and everybody that shows up on Biddle, I've been working on the Biddle community page, and there is a tiny short bio with a picture and links to everybody's websites, YouTube channels, and whatnot. So you can find all the info you need about the people here with me going to bigdaddylinux.com/community. All right. This week's challenge is Rosa, and that's all we got. We will see you next week.
See you later, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
See you guys.
Unity forever.
See ya.
Every time someone like praises Unity after it's dead, I just see like part of